Yeah, myself Anmol Gupta. Currently, I am pursuing Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science from National Institute of Technology. From the last past 6 months, I have been exploring web development, and so I am here with you all to learn APIs as well. Thank you.
Anurag.
Hello everyone, my name is Anurag Raj and I completed my engineering last year in IT and currently I am looking for job as my job offer was revoked due to COVID-19. So here I am to learn about APIs so that I can boost myself again. Thank you.
Sure. Deepak Kumar Das.
Hello everyone, this is Deepak Kumar Das and currently I am a pre-final year student pursuing my BTech in Computer Science domain from GIT University and I am more interested into full stack development, so I think this masterclass on APIs will help a lot.
Great, Deepak. Meha.
Hello everyone. I work as an automation engineer in ADP. Uh, my reason behind learning APIs or attending this session is to explore something over the weekend.
That's really great, Meha. Okay. Harsh.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Hello everyone. My name is Harsh Deshpande and I am a final year student at IIIT Nagpur. My major is electronics and communication and I recently completed my internship in backend development. I worked on .NET Core and C Sharp and I wanted to explore other things as well, and thus I decided to take this API masterclass.
Sure. I hope that you'll learn something. Yeah. Krishna.
Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. This is Krishna Kaushik. I am a third year at IIT Guwahati. I am from EC department. Me too, similar reason. Just want to explore something this weekend, so joined. This is my first meeting in this friend bench. Pretty excited about it.
Sure, Krishna. Lakshay. Lakshay, are you there? Lakshay 1424.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir, and all. So it was really great to know about Deepak, sir. And finally, when I not get to know about API class, it was really a great opportunity to attend this class. And moreover, I was learning, backend of website, but I was not able to connect. Hopefully, able to connect now by attending Deepak sir class. Thank you, sir, for letting me in. Thanks a lot.
Sure, Lakshay. Naman. Naman. Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Naman. I'm currently a associate product manager at in ShortTech, Rhodesan. The organization name is Rhodesan. I come from a non-technical background, so always interested to know something that makes the communication between a product manager and an engineering team smooth and flow. And I think API Masterclass give me this opportunity.
Thank you, Naman, for joining. And yeah, like it's not just for the tech folks. We have
Yeah,
some modules like Postman and Swagger, which
yeah.
we all can learn, and I guess that would be interesting. So yeah, moving forward to Prithvi Das, I guess. Am I
Good
pronouncing
afternoon.
it correct?
Yeah, it is Prithvi
Sure.
Das.
Okay, cool.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Prithvi Das. I have done my BTech from Calcutta Institute of Engineering Management from Computer Science and Engineering, and I have done 3 months of internship at Chickpea India Software Private Limited and got the PPO in that company only. And recently, yesterday, I have switched to a new company called, it is a startup called ThinkDeep Technologies, and I will be working there most probably in backend or frontend. So I'll be very interested to learn API master because it will help me in that field. Thank you.
Really great to hear, Prithvi. And second, next, Ria.
Hi everyone, this is Ria. I am currently pursuing my BTech from MIT Muzaffarpur. I am currently in my final year and I am interested in full stack development and APIs will be learning APIs will be beneficial for me, so I am here. Thank you.
Sure, Riya. So next is SR. I'm not sure about the name. SR, who is SR? Your username is SR, so can you check? Okay, so let's Sagar. So let me introduce you about Sagar.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, SR, you can speak now. Yes, you are audible. Okay, SR has left the meeting. Sagar, are you there?
Yes, Deep.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone. Myself, Sagar Chaudhary. I am currently working as an SD2 at Airmeet. And apart from work, like I have been helping out Deepak as a mentor with the front bootcamp which we are running right now. And I'm working with other platforms such as Udacity and those to mentor over there as well.
Yeah, so guys, if you have any doubts during the sessions, you can ask the questions in the the chat box, and also Sagar will be taking questions, and we'll be taking questions and will be helping you during that. So next is Samriddhi.
Hello, everyone. I am also a non-techie, and I would want to know a bit about APIs. Yeah.
Sure. Really great to see so many non-tech folks. Satish.
Hello everyone, myself Satish Narayan, and currently I'm studying in IST Sipur, like in Department of Computer Science, and in final year. And I want to explore like API. That's why I joined this course. So hoping to know more about API.
Definitely, Satish.
Thank you.
Shreyas.
Hey, good afternoon, sir. I'm Shreyas. I'm in my pre-final year from NITK Surathkal. I joined this course because I like backend development and APIs will help me. So.
Sure. Sudipto. Sudipto, am I audible?
Hello everyone. Hi. I just want to know more about APIs. I am currently playing a role of product manager, so I'm keen to know more technicalities about it.
Okay, sure. Yes, Pradhan.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Hello. Hello, I'm Suyash. I'm currently working as a UI developer. So I have around 2 years of experience in front end. So wanted to explore more about full stack and backend. So I'm joining this session. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Ujjwal.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ujjwal. I'm currently a manager at Just Dial. Previously, I worked as a consultant at Deloitte, and I'm here to explore more about APIs because this is something that really comes up in my day-to-day work activity, and I would certainly love to know more about it, as this will be beneficial for my work. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ujjwal, for joining. We are really excited to have you. And Vaibhav.
Hi everyone, myself Vaibhav Bakshi. I'm currently working as a problem analyst in Medline Industries. So right now in Medline, APIs are a lot used in the architecture. So I'm looking to grow myself in the company and learn more about APIs. So yeah, that's the reason for me to be here.
Sure. So I think, guys, we are done with the introduction. So let me introduce myself. I am Deepak, and currently I work as a software development engineer at a startup called 91 Wheels. Also, we are running Frontbench, where we built cohort-based tech courses to help student in many type of these programs courses, and we are also running a boot camp for full stack development. So yeah, that's all about me and what I am doing. So I think before starting, you guys able to see the screen, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, can we please? Okay, the PPT is full screen, I think. Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
yes.
So So basically, I have divided the modules like what all we will be learning in 7 to 8 modules, and at the end of each modules we will be taking questions so that there won't be any doubts, and we will not forget the doubts which we will be covering. So what the about the course, what we will be covering about the course. So basically this is a beginner to intermediate level course on the APIs, and at the end of this course you can understand what APIs are, you can understand how to read the API documentation, and you can use Postman, and you can understand how to work with the Swagger. So basically, if you do not know about Postman and what is Swagger, we will talk about these things like during the sessions. So you don't need to worry about these things. Also, we will be building few projects, like we will build a live Bitcoin price tracker application using CoinDesk public API, and we'll also see how to build a simple API using Node.js. So even if you are not from tech, like, and you can like skip these modules, but yeah, we will see how we can build APIs. So I have told you that there are 9 modules, and we will be taking the questions at the end of this each modules. So before understanding APIs, I think it's very important to understand that why it is important to learn APIs and why do we even use it, right? So let's take an example that if you want to accept payment on your website and you're not aware about what APIs are, what you have to do is that you have to create payment page, then you have to authorize your, basically there are transaction involved, so you have to authorize your payment gateway with a bank, and then you can start taking payments. But what happens, like, if you know about APIs, and simply if you know about APIs, you can integrate any payment service of companies like Paytm, Razorpay, Stripe. There are a lot many companies, and you can use their services on your website, and you can simply start taking payments in less than 5 to 10 minutes, right? You just have to integrate their APIs, and that's how the APIs make this work simple. This is just an example, and there are a lot many examples which we are going to see and how to use APIs. So this is an example that why we need APIs and how the APIs make our life simple. A second example can be, if you guys have seen, like in WhatsApp, there are GIF images. Like initially, from the last 2-3 years, we are seeing this GIF images. So, do you think that WhatsApp has created their own GIF library for this? No, simply they are using. There are a lot many companies like Jiffy and Tenor, and they have integrated their services into WhatsApp, and they're able to send that. They're able to use the other services uh, into WhatsApp. And this is just an example that why we use APIs. So basically, overall APIs are the fundamental piece of how most applications talk to each other. But what exactly is an API and how do we use one? In this class, I will explain the fundamental of the APIs and how they work. Yeah. So, and we'll break down the APIs in simple terms, and we will demonstrate that how you can get started with working with these APIs and incorporate data into your website or as quickly as possible. So maybe for that, incorporating, like integrating a API into your site, you just need to go to the API documentation and see how the things are structured. So we will see all these things, how it happens, and how we can integrate APIs into your site. So it's important to understand that what you should know before learning about APIs and during these sessions. So basically, like if you want to integrate APIs to your site, if you're familiar with the HTML and little bit of JavaScript. Why JavaScript? Because if you want to use the data in your applications, you need to understand about JavaScripts. Like it's a language which we use in the front end to get the data. But yeah, like for now, let's understand that we need to understand about HTML and a little bit of JavaScript. For the non-tech folks, like even if you don't know, we have Postman and Swagger for that. You can use those things for getting the data and visualizing the data. Second is the JavaScript object notation. this is also which you need to understand that how it works. We will see how these things like what is JSON and how we can learn these things. So there are few things like we will be using while using this course, and those are VS Code and Google Developer Tools and a Chrome extension called JSON formatters. So we will see like why these things are required and how will we use it. So one more thing is that what the things which we are like before the sessions, I got few calls that what all things we will be covering during the sessions, and we cannot cover everything about APIs. So before we get started, I want to briefly mention some of the things that we are going to ignore in this course. So basically the goal of this course is to provide an introduction to the APIs, so you have a better understanding of what they are and basically how you can start using them in your applications. So we will not see the difference between like what are REST cores and SOAP. These are the few advanced modules and some security protocols which we use in these APIs. So we are only concerned about the way that the best way to work with these APIs, and we are focused on the way to work with them and getting started with them as easy as possible with a very smallest learning curve. So let's start and see what's so in the module 2 we will be covering about basically what's an API, then request response cycle, what are JSONs, and how you can parse the JSON data, how you can work with objects. So even if you are from non-techs, you need to understand about all these things, and there is very little bit of tech learning involved in this, so you don't have to worry about. We will see that how we can learn these things. So what is an API? So can anyone tell me like you have any simple definitions of what APIs are? Can you write in the chat box?
Sir, may I try?
Sure, definitely.
So, sir, technically API stands for Application Programming Interface, and in layman language, we can say these are kind of managers. Like if I want to have some interaction with Paytm, instead of contacting directly the CEO of Paytm, some manager would be dealing with me to give some data and receive some data from me. So this manager, in terms of software, is called an API.
Definitely, I think yeah, it's close, but that's how the APIs work actually. But we will let's see any other answer on this. What are APIs? Guys, you can type in the chat box also if you. It's a way of communicating with the applications and the servers. Cool. Sure. So let's understand that basically the APIs are the way applications on the internet talk to each other, like Lakshya said. So it's correct. So let's understand how APIs works using a very basics, like in plain language, not using the tech terms like what are client servers and what all these things are. So basically, let's say that you are really in a mood for pizza and you could make it from scratch, but you would have to go to the store, buy all the ingredients and bake it yourself, right? It can be expensive, it can take a lot of time, and you may not have the expertise to bake it properly. Or what you can do is that you can go to Domino's. Like at Domino's, the pizza is usually excellent and all the work has been done for you. So what you can do is after going to Domino's is that you order from a menu that lists all the available pizzas and organizes them to a different categories. Like in the menu you can see like the veg pizza, chicken pizzas, all are listed in a different categories. So basically the menu typically lists the information about the dishes, including ingredient and the prices. And once you decide what pizza you want, you simply tell the server or basically the waiter that I will get the chicken pizza, and the waiter will take some time and they will deliver to you. So basically they take your order to the kitchen and the pizza is brought to you ready to eat, right? So it's great, like the pizza you want, and you don't have to make it yourself. Like you just have to know that how to order the pizza. You don't even have to know that how they have made it. So basically that's the thing about APIs. Like as we were talking about the payment example, that we just have to integrate the payment, and we don't have to know about that how the Stripe or the Razorpay is communicating with the banks and how they are dealing with the transaction. I just have to integrate their site, like basically their service in our system, and it will work, right? So while the Domino's pizza may not be the perfect analogy, but it is a helpful way, a very helpful way of understanding like how API works. So basically, with an API, you also want to get something, although it's not pizza, but it's data. Like in terms of tech terms, it's data, and there are kind of all the kind of companies that provide data, like as similar to for the payment module. I said that there are companies like Stripe, Razorpay, and PayPal, which give their module for integrations. So there are different kind of companies which provide their data as an API. There are like datas on the finance, weather, sports, and a lot of things are available. So in order to understand like how the request and the response cycle works, basically we can't use the waiter and the request terms, that I am sending the request to the waiter. So if I want to send a request, in order to understand API, it's very important to have a basic understanding of the request and the response cycle, and how we request for the data and how we will receive the data, right? So within request, what you do is that you ask for something. Like in the Domino's analogy, we saw that we're asking for some chicken pizza, right? And you are getting a chicken pizza. So with the request, you ask for something, and with the response, you get something back. So this is, in simple terms, this is what request and response cycle are. The request and the response cycle basically involve the communication between you, and by you I mean the web browser right now, because now we are in the tech terms. So by you I mean the web browser, and the response means the server, like you're communicating with the server. So you and your web browser are often referred to as client. Like from now on we will be covering like you as a client. So the request you typically make is a GET request. So there are three kind of requests: GET, POST, and DELETE, which we will see in after few slides. But let's say that there is a request called as GET request. So the request you typically make is a GET request, and you make a request to get data from the server, correct? And what that we are going to be focusing here in the class. So making a GET request from an API. In the Bitcoin price tracker application, we will see that how we can hit a API and get the GET request from that API. So now GET is just one of the things which we can ask, or like we can ask of the server in our request. There are a number of requests, as I told you, that GET, POST, and DELETE, and they're often referred to as verbs. So GET is one of the most common, and we will be using GET very often. So so there are multiple types of requests like GET, PUT, POST, and DELETE. Let's understand about all these GET, POST, PUT, and DELETE in simple terms. Can anyone tell me that what's the difference between like GET, POST, DELETE, and PUT? Guys, am I audible? Yes, sure. Okay. So let's understand like what GET, POST, PUT, and DELETE are, because that's how the APIs communicate to, like we communicate with the APIs. So basically, let's take an example of the LinkedIn platform, that if you want to fetch data from the server, and let's say if you want to view my profile sections, and so all the things, like if you are all the feeds you are seeing, all the posts you are seeing in your feed are coming from the GET request. Uh, Another example of GET can be you are searching for someone on the LinkedIn search bar, and you hit the search, basically search button. In that case, a GET request is posted on the LinkedIn server, and you will get some response. The example of post request can be that if you want to basically create a post, like if you want to write a post and you are hitting on the publish now button, that is something as a post request. Put request can be simply like if you want to edit your LinkedIn post, like we're taking the example of the LinkedIn, right? So if you want to update your something like edit your LinkedIn post, in that case, you can use put request. Delete request can be, it's simply if you want to delete your LinkedIn post, you can use delete request. So these are the standard way of how the HTTP protocols like HTTP request. So
Deepak, can you please explain put once again?
yeah, sure. So put does is that you can update your request. Basically, if you want to update your post, let's say that you have created a LinkedIn post and you want to update your request. So what server will do is that when you update your post, it will do a put request on the server. Understood?
So basically, put is for editing.
Correct. Put is for editing.
So the difference between put and post is put is for the editing purpose. If we will take the example of LinkedIn, and the post is for the upgradation of the post, or you can say the
Updation of the post.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Any other doubt, guys?
Sir, while updating as well, we at the end we post it only, right? I mean, so it should be the same, right?
No, so basically what you want to do is that, like, that if you want, you can do everything with the GET request also, but these are the standard way of how the HTTP protocols are defined. So basically these are the standard way. If you want to follow these things, like you can use like get, post, put and delete. But even if you define something using get request, and on the server while building your API, you say that from the get request I want to delete this resource. This can also work, but this is not the standard way of doing that. So these are the standard way of doing that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. So now we will see what is JSON, because basically JSON are a data format which we like mainly use in the APIs. So our goal with making a GET request was that we want to get some data back as a response, right? And so what data we will get? Actually, what we should be asking is that what format will that data come in, right? So there are mainly two main type of data format which we will see. First is XML and second is JSON. So if you guys might have heard about SOAP kind of protocols, which was like it's not very frequently used, but the SOAP request has an XML type of format. But these days, like JSON definitely dominates the web. So we will be working with the JSON data format throughout our course, and I think most of the APIs today are on the JSON format. So basically JSON stand for JavaScript object notation, and this is one of the reason it's handy to use, because it is look like the JavaScript objects. So it's basically very easy to work with our web projects, and we can use it very simple to any JavaScript object. If you're not familiar with the JavaScript object right now, don't worry, like we will see after a few days, few slides in this. So right now we are going to do a very basic overview of the JSON, and then we will see that how we can use JSON in our APIs, right? So basically this is the format of how JSON look like. first is a curly braces, then you have some name and some key value pair basically, and there is a comma. So this comma separate the two keys values pairs. Any doubt about JSON? Guys, any doubt about JSON? Okay.
Can you please explain like the format of how have you written it?
Sure, cool. So let me give you a.
And also, I wanted to understand that like why are we learning JSON? Like, what is the purpose of like learning JSON in APIs?
Okay, cool. So why we want to learn JSON is that the response we will get from the APIs will be in the JSON format. And as I told you now that most of the APIs today have JSON format data. So that's why we want to learn about JSON and how can you access this data? Like if you want to get the values, like uh, if you want to get the value of this age is equals to 25 and you want to display you want to access this basically age 25, how can you do that? So that's why it's important to learn JSON if you want to understand about APIs. And we will see, like, let me share you my code editor. I will show you in that.
Just to add, like JSON is just a way of representing how the data should look like. It's a way of sharing the data across application, which can be easily understood. So JSON is kind of a standard way which can be understood by many application across in today's time.
Correct. So guys, are you able to see my screen, the code editor?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sure. So this is a JSON object, right? Basically, this is a JavaScript object, and as I told you that JavaScript object and the JSON are both are similar, and they work as like same thing. So this is a JavaScript object. I have defined some. I have taken example of a car object. So basically in the car I have defined, these are the properties, like this key can be defined as a property. Here you can see that if I am hovering, it's showing as a property. So this is a property and this is the value. So let's say if I want to access this property of what is my car make name, or maybe what is my car model name. So we use dot notation to access the values, or the access the properties of the object. So basically this is our object. So if I use console.log, I'm using, this is a JavaScript like this is a JavaScript file. So if you're not aware about this things, like for the console, we use console.log to show whatever the data here we have written in the console.log. So I will just run this so I used here console.log. I'm able to get my data here as you can see that. So I'm able to get make model fit. So if I want to access the model name here, I will just use a dot property like car dot model, and using that I can access the model name. So there are deep level of nestings, like the models. When you work with these APIs, it doesn't matter, like it can be, the response can be deeply nested, something like A, or again there can be B, and there can be some values equals to 1 2 3 4 5, correct? So now if I want to, if someone want to, if you want to get this data this data of 1 2 3 4, how you can do that? Can anyone tell me? Like I told that you can access the properties of the object using dot notation.
So it's car dot period period
A dot.
period b dot
Correct.
dot value.
Yes, that's correct. So every dot notation for entering the nesting, like this nesting, you can use the dot notation. So I use car dot a, then after a I want to access b, so I use b. After that I want to access the value in this b node, so I used p. Now if I run my application, I will get the value of 1 2 3 4. So this is how like JSON works. We will see, like when we work with our API response, we will see that what kind of data we are getting and how can we use this dot notation property to get our data. Like I want to get the Bitcoin price, so how can we use the dot notation to get those data, we will see. So any doubts about the JSON thing? Abhimanyu, yeah, you have raised your hand, I guess. So
No, previously I raised the hand. I just
okay, sure. And Satish also, I guess. Any other doubts about JSON? Okay, so there are a few questions in the, I guess, the chat box. We will see at the end of this module. So now we have understand what JSON are and how can we use dot properties to access our JSON data, right? So let's understand that what is parsing and why even parsing the JSON data is required, and basically that's where the JSON comes in the picture. So basically when the data is sent in the response from the server, it is sent as a string and or text. So you have to extract the data, you have to parse that data in order to work with that data. So in order to work with the data, we want to convert it to the JavaScript object, and this process of converting the string to an object is referred to as parsing. So the examples, like to do this example, we use the JavaScript method called as json.parse, and json.parse is a basically pretty convenient name. As an argument, the method will take the response that you get from the API. So this method will take the response and it will convert the string to the basically JavaScript object. So we will see about the json.parse in the next module when we will work with this API thing, and when we'll start working with these APIs. So now, before understanding about the how APIs work and before making our first API request, we will see what JavaScript objects are and how can we basically work with the objects. So working with JSON means working with objects, and object oriented programming really dominates most of the programming world today, and it's a huge topic, so we are not going to cover everything, but we will just understand about few concepts in order to understand how to work with APIs in JSON. So what is an object? Can anyone tell me what is an object?
Sir, may I define?
Sure.
Sir, let's say a class is a blueprint of something, and object is the one that fills the data in it. Like,
and
if
what is
for
class
example,
here?
Sir, class is like the uh, predefined thing in which we will be creating objects.
Okay.
Let me give an example. Let's say if we are making ice cream, the case in which we will be making ice cream is a class, and the flavor of the ice cream, content of the ice creams are the object.
Interesting. Yeah, that's okay. Got it.
Is it correct, sir?
Yes, it's correct.
I hello. Can I tell the definition of objects of what I think?
Sure.
So objects I see as the game that we used to play in childhood, that is person, place, animal, thing. So anything
Mm-hmm.
that is person, place, animal, or thing is an object, and that object will have some, some properties and some methods. Like the previous guy was talking about ice cream, so the ice cream would have certain, properties, like the color, the flavor, and the package and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are methods which are associated with ice cream, like you can eat the ice cream or you can lick the, uh, the cream that is there and like that. So yeah,
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's like everything in the programming is an object. We can say that. Let's take an example of this car, like which we are seeing on this slide. Initially, we took the example of the car object now that when we saw in the code editor. So let's take an example that a car has some properties like make, model, weight, year, or some color, etc. So basically, objects also have some action associated with them, and for example, the action can be like start, drive, brake, or stop, etc. So this is how like the objects are. So basically, like car has the properties make, model, and year, and it has some action like start, drive, brake. When a function is attached to an object, it is called as method in the programming term, which we say that these are also called as functions, but we call it as a method in the Java in the object-oriented programming. So basically, to access an object which we saw in the code editor, to access this property of name, we have to use the dot notation, right? So within a car object, we can see that how we use the dot notation to access the properties of name and model and some few other things. So this is how this object is defined and how the object works. So why I'm telling you all this thing is that because to work with APIs in JSON data, it's really important to understand how the dot notation works and how you can access the properties and the data is using the dot notation. And this is just really important for this course, and this is a important properties. So then there are objects within objects, like working with objects we have see. So there are objects within objects. We have already seen objects within objects. So now I guess we are ready to cover the how we can start connecting to an API. Before that, if you have any doubt what APIs are, what are the request response cycle, and how we work with basically JSON and parsing data, I would love to answer all these questions, and you can ask right now.
Can I summarize of what I have understood from this session so that everyone is on the same page?
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think in the first chapter we learned about what's an API. So to understand what's an API, we took the example of, you gave the example of Domino's. So if someone wants to like have a pizza, he doesn't have to cook it, bake it, or understand how the pizza is made. He can simply, ask the waiter. So that is like make. So if you are asking for a pizza to the waiter, that is akin to making a request, to the API, and then the waiter will bring the pizza from the kitchen. Uh, so so we can think of kitchen as the server in the database, and then the waiter would return the pizza to you, whatever you have ordered, and so that is the response. So this is what understood in the first module. The second is, the request and the response cycle. So the data that is sent by us, that is by the web browser to the server is request, and the data that we get from got returned from the server to the client, that was response. uh, Next we understood that what are the different types of HTTP requests. So the first was get. So the get is used to let me check. So it is used to fetch data from the server. So suppose if I have to like search your profile on LinkedIn, so I'll go on the search, I will type your name, and then I click enter. So the moment I click enter, so the request to get the data is made to the LinkedIn server. So that is the get request. Then is post. So as the name suggests, post is used to add completely new data to the server. So post is like creation. So if I have to create a new LinkedIn post, I am putting a post request on the server. The next is put. So when I have to update data on the server, so that is a put request. So suppose I'm going to edit and repost my post. So that is I'm putting a put request on the server, and then that deletes the data from the server. And then we studied about JSON. So JSON is basically to understand that we get data from the server. Response that we get from the API server is usually a string, and then we parse it into JavaScript. And to play with that data, we need to understand what is JSON, because we are ultimately making things in JSON. And yeah, and then we understood what is objects and all. Yeah, that's pretty much. Am I correct? Like whatever I've said?
Yes, almost. I think you have summarized it pretty well. Any other doubt, guys, in this module?
Deepak, is there any authentication we need to do before creating or establishing communication between client and server?
Abhimanyu, you're not clearly audible. Can you repeat?
Are you able to hear me, Deepak? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so my question is, do we need to establish a secure connection or authentication before establishing a communication between client and server?
Yes, those things are required, but it depends. Like, we are not going to cover about the
Yeah.
those modules, but basically what happens is that obviously you want to connect to some, let's say you want to post on the LinkedIn. We are taking the example of LinkedIn, right? So let's say you want to post on the LinkedIn, so obviously when you are logged in, you would be able to post that.
Correct.
If without authentication you will post, the LinkedIn do not know that on which profile I have to post. So obviously you have to be authenticated, and authentication is a very different module. Like there are multiple ways of authentication, which we'll be seeing in a separate module, at the like in the module 8, I guess. So we will see how authentication works and how can we use that.
So, Deepak, I had a question that if we receive a JSON file,
Okay.
how should we able to interpret it? One is very simply that you showed there are different strings, there are different properties, and there are different output data in it. So, if
Okay.
we receive it, how can we simply interpret that?
You can simply interpret, like you are saying that how can I know that it's a JSON data, or how can I access the property of JSON data?
Access the property of JSON data.
So exactly. So that's why I was explaining you that the part of the dot notation. If you are still not sure, I think I can show you this code editor again. Do you want it?
Yeah. So, code editor had like the car example that you gave, right?
Yes, yes, correct.
Yes, I got a clear idea about it.
So let me give you another example. I guess I think you have not understood. I will
Deepak,
use it. Yeah.
can you also give me an example? Because you told that we get data from the server in the form of strings,
Mhm.
and then we convert that data into JSON.
Okay. Okay.
So can you also show me via code that like I'm getting the data first in the form of strings, and then I'm converting using JSON.parse, as you mentioned, into like
Yes.
JavaScript object. So can you also show me via code?
Definitely, we are going to do in the next module. In the next module, we'll be connecting to the API, and then we will convert the data. So in the next module, we will see that. But before that, let me show you how we can basically, if there are some complex data in our JSON response, how can we access those data, right? So give me 1 minute.
Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
Does the data need to be in string format only before being converted to a JavaScript object? Like, will integer be typecasted into string before it is converted to?
So basically, the data that returns from the server is in string format, so you have to parse in the JSON format. It doesn't like the server will not respond to integer, right? So it will return in string format.
Okay, so it is always in string format.
Yes, string or text format, correct. You have to parse into
Okay.
JSON. It can be XML also, but we're not like XML are not pretty much in use these days. And most APIs, if you see the most leading APIs of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, or anything, they all use the JSON request. So I think we should learn what majority of these uh, APIs are using. So
Sir, may I, sorry.
yeah, sure.
May I,
So like,
may I
so
ask?
you showed in the. Can I speak?
Yeah, please go
बताओ.
on.
Like you showed in the code editor, there the car's year model year. So that was like 2012, but that was integer type, right?
Yes.
So so means the definition which you gave, it was like it said it the object should be in string, and here it is integer. So
No, so I guess I think you must misunderstood. I said that ki while getting this is not the response we'll be getting from the server. This is the response which we will parse. Like let me we will
okay,
start
okay, it
with
is
the,
after passing.
yes. So this is the response which will parse from the JSON.parse thing. So let me start with the connecting part, like how we can connect an API and how we can get the data. So in that we will see also that uh, how we can basically, yeah, this is the example we can use, I guess. Is my screen visible, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just running this code, but I will explain you line by line that how this thing is working. Okay. So basically, when I do a GET request from my browser and I'm just opening this URL, so I am using a Chrome extension called JSON formatter, which I told you in the beginning of this course. That, but if you use this in the so that's JSON, that JSON formatter string is parsing my string data to JSON format. But if I use this in maybe incognito mode, so you can see that I am getting just a string format, and this is not the data format you can work with. So you have to, that's why we need to convert this data to the JSON format. And when we have converted this data to JSON, this is the response we are getting. So Naman was asking that how can we know that and how can we access the property of this data. So in order to understand, or in order to work with this data, you have to understand that this what this square bracket and what this object are. So basically this square bracket is an array, and in order to understand like how the array and objects are, so this is very simple. uh,
Sir,
yes.
pardon me for interrupting. Would you please
Okay,
repeat? I think there was some network glitch.
okay, sure, cool. So what I'm telling is that this is the response which we will get from the server, but I am using a extension called as JSON formatter, which is converting my string format data to the JSON thing when I'm saying this thing. But when I am uh, when I will see this in an incognito mode without any extension, I'm not parsing this data right now. So this data is in this string format, right? So that's why
Okay,
in
sir.
order to work with this data, we need to convert this data to the JSON format. For better visibility or better understandability, I'm just
Mhm.
running a basically JSON formatter extension here. But in the code, how can we see in the code that which data I'm getting? So let's say that key, this is the code I will explain, but for right now, understanding how the JSON properties and what JSON properties are, let's make a GET request. So you can see that like initially I printed, okay, so this is the data we have got. This is the array, like this is the past data. If I want to access the first property, like first node and description object, what I have to do is that I have to basically console.log JSON data.0 dot description. Description. Now
Okay,
I will
so
tell you
these
that.
are key value pairs, no?
What?
Sir, are these key value pairs, right?
Yes, these are key values pairs. These basically objects are key values pairs. So if I hit this thing, I am getting an object of, okay, what is this? Yeah, so I am getting the description from the first node. Now I will tell you that why I used, like, for the first time I'm using a square bracket and 0. So basically this thing is an first what we are getting is that this is an we are getting an array. So for the non-tech folks, you might not understand this, but you have to understand, like if you want to work with an APIs and how this thing works, and if you want to access it in the code, you have to learn about the little bit about arrays and the objects. So if you want to access the first node, then you have to do the my JSON data dot square bracket of 0, or basically the number of on which position it is. So in programming, everything starts from 0, so that's why we are using 0 index here. And I want to access the description, so I am putting the description thing. So let's say that if I want to access the second 0 1 2, I want to access the third property, so I will use data of 0, like data of 2, and then the name, blueberry mineral water, correct? So what I will do is that I will do 0 1 2 dot name. I used 0 1 2 0 1 2. So I should be getting the data as value as blueberry mineral water in the response. Let's see that. So that's what we are getting, blueberry mineral water. Naman, understood about this thing? How we can access JSON property? Okay, that's great. Okay.
Yes.
So let's move toward how we can connect to APIs and how we can get the data from APIs. Let me reshare my screen again. Yeah.
Sir, is this site made by you, H plus Port?
No, this is not made by. I'm just using some public APIs.
Got it, sir.
Yeah. So in the module 3, which we are going to cover that how we can connect to an API. So for now, we have seen that what are JSON objects, and why we understood about JSON is because when we connect to an API, we will get some JSON data from there, and we want to access those data. So we will see how we can connect to an API. What are XML HTTP requests? Like basically, XML HTTP request is an way of connecting to the APIs, and what are the other ways of connecting to an APIs? So let's first start with the XML HTTP request. So basically the XML HTTP request allow you to make a HTTP request. Like there were methods of HTTP, methods like get, post, and delete. So this is the way HTTP request is the way you can request data. The XML part is little misleading here, but you can request any data in any format. So in order to do the like make a request, what we do is that we do var request and new XML request. This is little bit of JavaScript here. This is how we do in the JavaScript part, and then we open a port of request dot on this object. We use request dot open, and here we pass get method, like what type of method we want to call in this API. So this is a demo URL just I have given. So first you need to create the XML HTTP object, and to do that we use the keyword new. And what this will do is that it will assign a object to this variable. Then we can call this variable anything, like request can be called to anything, but just for clarity I'm calling it as a request because this is a request, right? So when we create this new object and then we access to all its method and properties, like we can access the properties and the methods of this XML HTTP request. Basically this is XML and HTTP request is a built-in method of the JavaScript. Yeah, like we can call the request. Second thing is that first in the request.open part, what we want to do is that first we want to open a connection to the make request, and then we can use the methods like what we want to do. So there are two parameters with this open method that we really care about. The first thing is what request type it will be taking, and the second is that where we are like and the second is the URL, basically the request on the server you are making the request. So as we said previously that we are always going to make a get request in this course, so we will put the get for this in the first parameters, as you can see here, and then you have to use this URL to make the get request. So now let's take this thing in the browser, like in our code base, that how we can use this thing request.open and XML HTTP request to understand how we are getting response and what type of data we are getting from the server. Correct? Any doubt in the XML HTTP part?
So it's mentioned that it's a XML HTTP request. So will we get the data in the XML format?
No, as I told you now that XML is little misleading. You can get any like you can get any response if you want. Basically the response type is defined from by the server on which you are sending the request, and those things will be defined on the API documentation. So we will talk about like how you can read API documentations and which type of response you are getting in the next module. Correct?
One question. So there is we are giving URL as a parameter. So
Okay.
that URL is like URL of the APIs which we are trying to connect to, or the APIs which we are creating. So what URL is that one?
Okay, so this is basically the URL which we are trying to connect, and uh, I think you misunderstood that part, that you're saying we are not creating any API here. We are just connecting to, yes.
Okay.
Hello. We are just connecting to the API and getting the data.
Okay.
Yeah. So this URL is from where we want to connect.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take an example of. So what we did was that we want to open a request first. So this line like var request and XML HTTP request will create we are just creating a new object and we are assigning this. So you can use it any, like you can do ABCD even if you want, but just for the clarity I'm sending is that this is our request object. On this object we are accessing, like this open is defined from this XML HTTP because this is an inbuilt method, and as you can see it is saying that use XML HTTP object to interact with the server, and you can retrieve data from a URL without having to do a full page request. So this is just giving a description about the XML HTTP request. But the next what we will do is that we will use this, we will connect to an API by using open the request port. The second thing is that we have to do an onload on the request. Like this will basically when you will open the request, what you want to do. So onload method basically get the response from this request. So get the response from this For now, let's clear all these things, whatever these are. So after loading this request, like you have loaded the request, now you want to access this, access the response part. So if I initially I was telling now that if you just do the console, like if I just this is the unpassed response. So whenever we will see, like on every step we will use a console.log to see that what type of data we are getting from the server. So let's see that what we are getting from this server. So as you can see that this is the data we have, like on the first response I'm getting from this server. So I want to understand the type. I don't know anything about this response. So what I will do is that in a JavaScript there is something called as type of response. So I will just go and check that what is this, what type of response is this. I'm not aware about this thing. So I will do console.log. Okay, console.log. So as you can see, this is in string format, like this is in string format. So now I want to parse this because let's say that if I want to access this name properties, how can I do that? It will be very difficult for me if this is in string. Like I have to write a lot of parsing and custom functions to do that, to do that. So what I will do is that I will simply parse this response. Parse the response. And for parsing response, like why I am doing parse response, because the response is in JSON object, and where you can find JSON, like where you can know that the response returning from this API is JSON or not, you can see on the documentations. But as we already know that this is a JSON response, we will just use console, like we will just store it as a new variable, parse data, and use JSON.parse. So basically this JSON.parse method will take a string. So whatever the data we have got from the server, this is our string, we will just pass it here. Now we will check that key, what's the format of our data, like can we read this data or not. So if we see this data, now it's clearly visible, like we can access all the property if we want, or like it's pretty readable, right? So if you want to check, like if you want to check that which type of response it is, you can again do the type of. Basically type of is type of just tell you the type of this data, and this type of this data is object. So now we can, this is an object, we can do whatever we want from this data, like we can access the DOM node. So as you can see, like if you want to access the 29 node and I want to access the ID and the image or maybe name, so how can I do that? Can anyone tell me how can I do that?
So we will print it console.log parse data.
Okay.
And we will use the index 29th.
Okay, 29 and then
dot name.
Correct. So as you can see, on the 29th index, I was trying to access the name node, and now I can get this. I'm getting the value as vnick t-tsert. That's how we work with an API response. And basically fetch is one of the way, like the XML HTTP request is one of the way we can connect to an API. There are multiple ways, like there is also a method called as fetch. I think the tech folks might know about this method. So how can you access the property? Let's say that It's very simple. Like XML HTTP request is pretty much not in use these days, and we mostly use fetch method. So let's clear all these things for now. Comment this thing, and I want to do a fetch request on this API. So what I can do is that using fetch, I can just pass the data, pass the URL, and there is a method called as then. In the then, this then will return a function, right? So what I have to do is that just uh, console.log the response. So on the each step, we will see that which type of data we are getting, and then we will try to fix this thing, because this is not how it works. Like on the then, it's fine that basically then is a promise call. You might, if you're not from tech, like if you're not in aware with the JavaScript, you might not know about what promises are, and basically fetch uses promises. So if we use the fetch method and run this thing, so we are getting a response with all these things. Like the body, we are not able to see what in the body is, so it's an unreadable format. So what we have to do is that we have to return a response.json thing from here, because we want to get the basically we want to pass the JSON data from here, and then we will do the request. Basically, if we do the response thing in this, then we will get the data. So fetch and XML HTTP request, both are the way how we connect to an API. You can read more about these things in detail, but we're not going to cover these in very detail. We just wanted to connect to an API and play with the data, like how we can get the data and how we can see and how we can access the properties of the data. So if you have any doubts in this, you can let me know now, because we are pretty much covered with the we are pretty much done with the 23rd module.
Can you please explain the code once again? So what I understood is in this module we were connecting to an API to get that data, and the first thing was when we connected to the API, we made a request, we made a get request to get the data from the API, and then what happened was I got a response because I used a JavaScript method to get the response, and the response was in string format, string or
Correct.
text format. And then
Correct.
I used the JSON.parse function, to convert it into objects or JSON data so that I can play with it.
Correct.
If you can just if you can explain me the code line by line, it would be really awesome, because I
Cool,
will make
cool.
a note also of it.
Sure. So in the line, what you have to do is that you have to use we are using an inbuilt method of the XML HTTP request. What this XML HTTP request will do is that it will create an object of their objects. Like we are creating an object of this request module. On this request part, what I'm trying to do is that I'm opening a new methods. Like I'm opening a method for trying to connect to this API. So this open method is basically an inbuilt method which will take two parameters. The first is the get request. Let's say that we told now that there are multiple type of methods in the HTTP protocol. So if we do, let's say instead of get, we know that this is a get request. But if we do the post request, what it will return? Let's try to see that. Response. So basically, this their API is working on all the even get and post and delete on every HTTP method it is working, and it should not be like that. Like, so yeah, like this should not be like that. Basically, this is where in the first parameter we pass the method which on which we try to we want to do on this API on this server, and this URL is basically on which API you are trying to access. For example, let's say if you want to access the Twitter, let's say just go to the Twitter API. Okay, so this is some API endpoints. What I will do is that I will just go and hit this API and see what we are getting in the response. Right. So basically, I'm not able to access this API because Twitter had some security policy, of course. Course, these policy basically do not allow no access control origin. So we won't cover about basically course is a same origin policy that you can access this API only from the twitter.com, something like that. So I'm accessing from, so this is an unauthenticated request and I'm doing from the local host. So that's why it will not allow me. So these are kind of the security protocols. But while in case of the previous API which we are using, this API do not have any security. So we are able to access even on the get method or post method or delete method.
Deepak, you can
Sir,
try
is
this
it more about cross-platform scripting?
What? Can you repeat?
Is it cross-platform error, like
Correct,
cross-platform
correct,
scripting something?
correct. It's cross-platform security, not cross-platform security, but cross-origin. Like this, let me tell you, there is some security. For example, if you are on the twitter.com and you cannot, like Twitter should not allow its API from something like api.github.com. Like if you try to access the Twitter API from a GitHub domain, so if Twitter has not authenticated that request, you cannot do that request. So that's why I am getting this. That's why I'm getting this error message when I'm
Sir,
trying to. Mhm.
is this simply mean like that Twitter wants you have to use my API from twitter.com link only? Is it something like that?
Yes, correct. And also, if Twitter, if you have to use from some other domain, then you have to get it authorized from the twitter.com. Like you have to get it authorized from the Twitter.
Okay, so here we are using it from the local host link, so that's why Twitter is not recognizing us.
Correct.
Okay, so thank you, sir.
So if you have used like Google developer tools or Google APIs console, so if you want to use it for the testing, so they basically allow the localhost URL. There are some whitelisting a section where you can whitelist your localhost port and then you can use from localhost as well. So these are all kind of security protocols which we use to basically restrict and make our API secure.
I think GitHub API would work here. Would you like to try,
Yes,
please?
correct. So if anyone can send me the GitHub, let me GitHub API. Can anyone send me the GitHub public API?
Or can I send the Instagram API if that works?
Yeah, sure, that can work. You can send any API if you want. Like it should be just public.
Sir, what's the difference between RESTful API and normal API?
What do you mean by normal API? So we have
Like,
got.
sir, this
Uh-huh.
API that we are using, is it a RESTful API?
Yes, it's a REST API. So yeah, I have got one. I have got one GitHub URL. If we try to see this, the response from this, because this is a public API, so it should
Hello.
run. Yeah, yeah.
Sir, please repeat. There was some network glitch, please.
Okay, so I'm saying that ki, let's see. I am using a public API of the GitHub. So let's see that what type of data we're getting, and this had some deep nesting. So basically, this is a public API. So that's why we are able to access the GitHub API from our local host. But in case of the Twitter API, we are not able to access. So the request was in the request is still in the string format, and it looks like an object. So what we will do is that we'll just use json.parse on this. So after using json.parse, we have got like multiple data on here, and you can play around with these APIs and see how the nestings and how you can access the properties of this data. So let's say if I want to access this thing, owner name, or basically login, I want to access the login. So how can I do that? Can anyone tell me in the chat box?
Sir, please repeat the question.
So I was saying that if you want to access this, if you want to access the owner node and then the node ID, or basically login information, how can you do that?
So, sir, there must be some array position to it, like of owner. The array position must be 012, something like that, and after that dot login, json dot parse dot that position and then login.
Correct. So let's say I want to access the login. So again, that's why I was telling that understanding the JSON and how the JSON parsing works is very important. So let's say I wanted to access this owner name and owner dot login. So I will go one by one. First, I will go to the item node. So I will go to the parse dot item. I will see what I'm getting in this, like login. Now I have some IM inside the item. So I will go in the zero on the zero index, item dot zero. Now I am inside the zero index, as you can see, and I'm consoling this data. So this login data. So what now I will do is that I will go to the owner section. Where is the owner section? So I can access this owner section using dot notation. So you can go here and use the dot zero. You have to use dot on every nesting, like on every label of the deep nesting, you have to use dot net notation to access the properties. Again, I will do that. Now I'm inside, as you can see, now uh, I'm inside the owner section. I wanted to access the login name. So what I can do is that owner.login. And that's how I can get the name is equals to Freak WordCamp. So when you are getting the data here, you can display on your sites or wherever you want based on the JavaScript methods and DOM properties. So any doubts about this?
Sir, please show the code once.
Okay, just a minute. Wait. Yeah, so are you able to see?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
So let's move to the next module. I think we are already, it's 4 a.m., 4 p.m. Hmm. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Sure. So any doubts in module 3 till now? So that we can start from the module 4. And in the module 4, we will see a lot of things like all the information about APIs, what are Postman, how we use Postman, how can you send a basic request using Postman, and what are endpoints and parameters. How can you make a test request from to an API from the Postman? We will see all these things. Okay. So basically working with an APIs is involves a lot of things about reading the API documentation and first testing our responses using the Postman and then integrating in our code base. So we have already seen that how we integrate in our code, like how we call an API using code. But now, like, if you just want to get started with an API, so how will you do that? Like, what would be the first step when you want to integrate a API on your site? So first step would be that read the API documentations. Let's say if I want to integrate the Twitter API, the first step would be that key go to the API documentation. So or the maybe if you want to integrate the Google API on your site, the first step would be visit the Google API documentations. So basically, starting point for working with an API is the documentations. And a good way basically a good API should have the documentations of what API does, what type of data you can get from it, and it should also explain the requirement for using the API. Like, as I think someone was asking that do we need to authenticate our request for making the put request or get request, or is the API paid, or is the API is free? Like, as we were able to access our Twitter, we were not able to access the Twitter API, but we were able to access the GitHub API. So this is all kind of things and the information that we need to get from the API documentation. And a good API documentation should have all these things. Also, does it require you to register and obtain a key? So basically, APIs, well, when you work with an APIs or integrate some other third-party API services on your site, what they do is that they provide an API key so that they can identify that who is connecting to my site. And API key is one of the way you authenticate. We will also talking about API skin and security of API in the last module. But for now, let's move to the documentation part. So, and most importantly, for actually working in an API, you should provide, like, they should provide you with the endpoints and the parameters. For example, in case of our Domino's, if you want to access the chicken pizza and you want to order it, so we will talk about what are the endpoints and what are the parameters. So uh, we have a API documentation which we will see in some time. But for now, understanding the endpoints and understanding the what are Postman and understanding what query parameters are is very important. So when you have read about the API documentation, the first step in integrating a third party API on your site is testing how it works. Like, you want to read the API documentation first, and then you want to test the response, like what type of data I'm getting. So basically, all these things you can do using Postman. So Postman is a popular API client that makes it easy for the developers to just wait a minute, I guess. So yeah, not able to change the slide. Wait a minute. Okay, yeah. So Postman, yeah. So Postman is basically a popular API client that makes easy for the developers to and anyone to basically create, share, and test our API documents. Similarly, similarly, endpoints are these things like, for example, endpoints are the different places which we can connect in an API. So these are the URL. Like in case of the Domino's, if I want to access domino's.com/Wes Pizza, so these are the different places you can connect with an API. So looking back at our Domino's analogy, we can think of the endpoint like the different part of a menu. These part are like the locations, similar like veg pizza, chicken pizza, or any other variety. They all have their own specific data. We can jump directly to them on the menu when we use the endpoints, right? So it makes it easy for accessing the data, and these all things are defined and should be defined in the API documentations. And these are just an examples. Like Domino's is just an example of how the endpoint should look like and how an endpoint works. So next thing in understanding about the parameters, like what are the query parameters in the APIs are that, let's understand that you want some Mexican green web pizza and you want some extra cheese and you want to request it that. So how you can do is that you can pass using an question mark and cheese is equals to extra. So basically what query parameters are that it allow you to narrowly define or filter your response that we get. Like I don't want just green wave pizza, I want that pizza with extra cheese. So I will do a question mark with cheese is equals to extra, and that will narrowly define what data we want. Like we just want the cheese is equals to extra, so we just want to filter the responses. In that case the query parameters are used. We may also see like see forward slashes by using query parameters because it's very common. For the forward slashes I will tell you in the when we will work with the documentation part. But the question mark part is very intuitive to work with, and you can work with it very easily. So making a test request we have already seen, but let's now understand, like we have some API documentation, and what we will do is that we will just go to the API documentation and we will see that how we can read the API documentation, go to Postman, uh, do the request, and then integrate the APIs on our side. Like we have already done this test request part, but we will try to do it using the Postman. Correct. So any doubts in this? Okay, so let's.
So wanted to ask that since in the last slide that you showed,
Okay.
where we were writing that line in the code request.open,
Okay.
and we were passing on two parameters. One was the HTTP method that was get, and the second was the URL.
Mm-hmm.
So is that URL and endpoints are the same thing?
Yes, the endpoints, the URLs and the endpoint are the same thing. Basically, the endpoints there can be a lot of endpoints in an API. So endpoints were the way, like I told you now, that endpoints are the different places you can connect to an API. Let's say that you wanted to access the uh, let's say you wanted to access the Mexican like chicken section on the pizza, in the Domino's. You want to just get the information about what chicken, what non-veg item Domino's have. So you can do domino's.com/non-veg section, and if you want to understand about, if you want to see just veg section things or veg items, then you can see domino's.com/veg, and that's how the APIs are differentiated, like the endpoints are differentiated. While in case of the query parameters, it is used to filter down the response.
So parameters are a part of endpoints only, right?
Yes, correct. And parameters are the part of endpoints. Hello. Okay, guys. So I have one API documentation. We will try to like go to that API documentation and see how it works. Hello, am I audible? Can anyone confirm? Sagar Venkatesh.
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay, perfect. So I guess you're able to see this screen H plus port, correct?
Yes.
Fine. So we have a open source API documentation which has listed some information about these APIs and how can we connect to this API and understand about what endpoints are, what query parameters are, and based on those things we can request the data. Right, so we will be using Postman first, and then I think we have already used the XML HTTP part, so we will not see that thing again. But if you have any doubt, we will do that thing again. But for now, I have the Postman open. So there is a quick poll on the chat, if you can see. Have you worked on Postman before? Just wanted to understand how many of you know about Postman. Great. Most people do not know about this thing, so I think we can cover it. So guys, as you can see, this is a H plus some documentation. So what it is saying is that this is a product URL, this is a product page, this is the base URL. On the base URL, I can see that there are some parameters, and I can the parameter name is qty, and the possible value is equals to any integer value 1 2 3. The order can be, the possible value is ID, name, price, description. ID is the ID of the product. If I use the sort ascending order, A is C for the ascending order and D is C for the descending order. So let's say that this is my base URL, right? So what I will do is that I will just go to this and let's make a new collection. So collections in the Postman are, you can just store a lot of Postman endpoint request endpoints in a collection and save it. So what we will do is that we will do a get request on this endpoint. I don't need to do anything right now. I will just use the get request because I don't know about anything about this API. So I will just go and do a get request, right? And see what type of data, what type of things it is returning. So as you can see, we have not passed, like header is empty, parameters, authorization. We will talk about this in a little bit, what these things are. But for now, we just need to understand that we needed to do get request on this. Also, the get and post have to be defined in this API. If you see API created by, so they have not defined that whether it is a get request or post request. So let's skip this thing. But if I do the post request, let's see what's happening. So initially we got now that this endpoint is opened on even get request and post request. So not a problem, but we are getting some data from here. We are getting a huge number of data here. Now we will try to do the try to use the parameters here, that what type of parameters they are using and how can we use to sort the data. Like there are some formatting called as XML and JSON. So let's see if I use the parameter name as with value is equals to XML, what type of data it returns. So how can we use parameters? Basically, parameters can be defined in here is param. You can pass the key. You don't need any programming knowledge to do all these things. It's just that you need to understand what parameters are, what headers are, what bodies are, and how can you do get request and post request. So it's clearly simple. Like, it's saying that parameter name is my format, so I'm just copy pasting this format name here and pasted this format name. now i will now I will go and put the values at XML and we'll try to see what's happening here. Let's okay. Values as a XML. Format as XML. So as you can see that initially the response was in the XML JSON format, but when you used format with parameter format is equals to XML, the data is returning is in some other format, and it's already like the body is JSON. If I do try to do it in JSON, it's not clearly visible. But when I am doing it in the XML, my data is in the XML format. Let's try to use some other we will work with the JSON, so let's keep the JSON property and send the data. So now our data is in JSON. So basically, even if I remove this thing, their default data is in JSON, I guess. So that's why it's coming in JSON. So next thing is that we will use QTY, maybe quantity is equals to, that denotes the quantity, I guess. So parameter that QTY is equals to any integer value. So I will try to do QTY is equals to 1. QTY is equals to 1. What type of data it will return? So quantity is equals to 1. It's saying that only one quantity will be returned. If I do it 2, so 2 quantities are returning. So this is the way the backend has been handled in this way, that if you pass here QTY is equals to 2, so the backend will return only 2 response. But you can see one more thing here, that the query parameters are getting passed in the string, right? So we are doing the get request. If you have to do like as simple as that, that if I have to pass, for example, if I'm doing this request from an browser, so what will happen is that I don't have the visualizations, like I don't have this parameters option. So in order to do that, I have to include this question mark and query parameters in order to find that I just need QTY is equals to 2 params, right? So if I do this here, it will also return me 2 data. Let's try to explore more things here. So ID of a product. So ID is equals to 2. Maybe the ID is equals to 259. So I will pass the ID as 259. In that case, I'm getting the data as ID is equals to 259. Any doubts in this, like how we are using the API using in the Postman? Any doubt in the Postman thing?
So, Deepak, my question is,
Mhm.
the Postman is basically the interface which we are using for the endpoints, what have actually at the endpoint of the REST servers, links, you can say.
Abhimanyu, your sound is, I think, it's breaking. I'm not able to clearly hear. Can you type your question maybe in the chat?
Okay.
Yeah. No. Okay. No. Cool.
So hi Deepak, just wanted to ask that suppose if I have to like suppose I have to integrate a service from Twitter or Instagram in my API, and I'm the product manager of that, building that responsible for building that feature.
Okay.
So can Postman come handy for me, to understand that what type of data can I get from the APIs and what can I build. So how can I like decide on that? Like, can Postman be helpful for me? I think it is, right?
Definitely. Like let's do not see this documentation and go to the any documentation you say, any documentation you want me to go, so that we can explore that API documentation, and we will try to make some hit some request here, right? So let's say I'm going to the Meha. You want to ask something?
Yes. How do we perform post action on this? So when we perform post action,
Okay.
are we adding one more element to an array?
Correct. So let me show you. Is there any post request in this or not? Else I will use some other endpoint. Post. Okay. So there are some post. Let me show you how the post request works. API and post. So yeah, basically posts are used for adding some data on the server. On the post. Okay. So in order to do that, first you have to check that whether the API is a post request or not, whether it accept post request or not. So as I can see that this is the no, I think it's for post. It's for post.
So how do we decide or verify that if API is accepting post request or not?
Correct. So it will be defined in the API documentation. So this documentation is not very accurate. Actually, it does not have any post request. So let me go to the Twitter or some other APIs endpoint, and then we can see maybe GitHub API post request. So I wanted to tell you about this Swagger tool. So basically, Swagger is a tool where you can explore when the API is created. What the tech team does is that uh, they make some kind of documentation for everyone to understand, so that everyone can understand what these APIs are, and anyone can perform, like it's for testing also, that you can perform any kind of request from here and see what data type of your what data you are getting, right? So in a correct API documentation will define that whether this endpoint will accept get request or post request. So you don't need to worry about that key, my this endpoint I need to do or get or post. So as you can see, this endpoint, like this is a standard way of how the API documentation look like. Or maybe if I go to the Twitter documentation, Twitter API documentation. So let's first see this. So this is the standard way of how the API endpoint look like. And in the post request, as you can see, on I have a slash post. If I do the execute. Okay, so here is my endpoint. So as you can see that I am doing a post request on this because I got the endpoint from here that they are doing a post request, correct? And this endpoint is defined here. This endpoint is defined here. It's accepting post request. If I do get request on here, I don't know what it will do because I have to check. See, so this is saying that unknown type. This is not a defined request. If I do some patch request, it will not show anything. It's showing that unknown type. But in case if I'm doing post request, it's showing something that this is a correct, but you need to pass something, like you need to pass something in the body. So whenever we post something, like we do post request, we need to pass some payload, and the payload are passed in some of JSON data. Like if I whatever they are using here in this post request, if I use that, let me do that. So they are using this value. So what I will do is that in the post request, I will pass this in the JSON. So let me briefly explain you what happening here. So we are doing a post request on this endpoint we need to pass something in the body because it's called as a payload kind of things, that what you need to add. So in this add thing, what you're doing is that this is, we are adding some pet. This is the object and the JSON thing which we talked in the second module, and now we will do a send request. So as you can see, like, it's successful, it's returning something, it's not an unknown response. So we can understand that, yeah, it has been added, or maybe it's a dummy response from here. So this is how the get post request works. But the get and post request, like, the HTTP methods has to be defined from the API documentation. That's the point.
Deepak, can we cross check and see the payload that you posted has really got added by doing a follow up get?
Correct. So if the documentation is like that, we can do that. Let's see. Like, these are all our dummies APIs, right? So we cannot do that. In that case, like, if you have any documentation, then we can do that. Else, I just have to check. Like, what happening is that they might not add this data, but they're just returning the same data that, yeah, this is successful. Like, it's not a, let's say if I pass something here like this. So it is returning, like, I think ID is added maybe. So now I can see that the ID is getting, I am passing something and ID is getting added. You can see the ID is returning. So I have to get way, like, I have added this ID. Let's make a note here. Let's note this thing and see from their ID, see from their data, that how can I fetch data, how can I fetch an pet from this ID. So this is the request. On this request, what I will do is that I will pass this ID. This ID we just got from after posting the data. Try it out. So as you can see that the response is empty. So let me do it from the Postman. What I will do is that v2 pet and this ID. Pet and this ID, and I will do a get request here. So when I'm doing get request, I don't need to worry about this body. Even if you leave it, like, this body will not be passed while doing get request. So you don't need to worry about anything. I will do this thing, and I'm able to see that this was the data I was getting. Like, let's again post something. Correct. So I am posting something. I got an ID of 65. I'm passing this 65 ID. I'm getting the same response. Let's try to add maybe photos URL of, if I'm adding here.
Sir, may I ask one thing?
Sure.
Sir, let's say when we are adding data, so at that point, let's say in that JSON format, they need three things like name, age, and roll number, right? But while we are doing it, we just save name and roll number only.
Correct.
So will that work, or will that add to that database?
Can you repeat your questions? Can you repeat your question?
Just a second, sir. Just a second.
Yeah, so guys, this is how, like, get post request works, and you can go to any API documentation and see how the things are structured. But this way, like, whether the method is get or post or delete, you have to find from the API documentation. You don't need to worry about these things. The parameters are basically, you have to use, if you're doing a get request, you can pass the parameters here. If you're doing a post request, you have to pass the body payload here. All the body payload will be defined in the will be given to you in the API documentation, what type of data you can pass. So if you have any question, because that's more of about the API, like the Postman, if you have any more doubts in this, let me know. Okay, I guess we can move to the next module then. If you do not have any doubt in this, there are a few questions. Can we create our own API which we will actually add data instead of uh, dummy response? Yeah, so in that case, what you have to do is that we will, if you are from tech background, then you can use a Node.js and Express server to create your own API. We will be building one simple API using Node.js, but that won't be like adding data and fetching that data, because it'll be too much work and we can't cover all these things in this course. We'll be able to see endpoints in the Postman because we can do sort of mistakes in. Abhimanya, I didn't get your questions. Can you repeat now?
Hello.
Yeah, I didn't get your question on the chat.
So I mean to say that Postman is an interface where we
Okay.
can enter the APIs or search for the APIs rather than typing manually on the web. For example,
Okay.
you enter different type of switches under the Google when you try
Mm-hmm.
to fetch the details for a particular API. So rather than doing that over there, we can do it over Postman to get the more clarity without any mistakes.
Yes, correct. That's totally correct. We can do. That's why we use Postman now. That before integrating our APIs, we first check the documentation, and we first see that what are those endpoints, and then even like if you are a non-text, like let's see about the life cycle when you have to integrate a API in your company. First, it comes to the product teams, then product team reviews it. You have to see it using yourself, that what type of response or maybe you will be getting. And based on that, you will give the endpoints to the developer teams or tech team. So yeah, you have to, you can do these things with the Postman.
Fine, fine.
Okay. Any other question, guys, in this? Okay, cool. So let's move to the next module, I guess. Or it's 2 hours. So if you want to take, I think we can do that also. Let me do a poll whether you want to do a break or not. So now we will build a price tracker application. I guess few people want break, so I think we can take a 2-minute break instead of 5 minutes. So you can take some water or something.
Please, let's take a break for 5 minutes, Deepak, because
Sure, cool. Cool, guys. So we'll be back at 4:43. Hi everyone. सारे लोग आ गए क्या? Can you just type yes in the chat so that we can start?
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Sir, Lakshya here. Sir, I was asking, like when we are signing up for Facebook, right? So they need some limited amount of information, right? That we have to provide. That says star one thing that are necessary to fill, right?
Correct.
So, sir, this was the thing that I was asking. So, I was just thinking, basically, in the backend, same thing might be happening. Like we are entering the things, and a Facebook page would be saving it in JSON, then passing it to server, something like that. So, sir, if I don't write anything, how they will say that it's fine that you didn't type that, or please type that thing, until and unless we have not, submitted the page.
Submitted the page means I'm not getting what you're trying to ask.
Sir, may I ask in Hindi?
Sure, definitely.
तो सर जैसे पेज पे हमारे पास कुछ स्टार वाला पोर्शन आए होते हैं ना, जैसे नेम, आधार कार्ड नंबर, और लेट्स से 4 डॉक्यूमेंट्स है, नेम, आधार कार्ड नंबर, एज और लोकेशन, ठीक है?
Okay.
तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हम सिर्फ 2 चीजें डाल रहे हैं, नेम और आधार कार्ड नंबर, बाकी 2 चीजें नहीं डाल रहे।
Okay.
क्या वो जेसन में स्टोर होके जा रहा है और उनके बैकएंड पे सेव हो रहा है? जैसे हमारे पास तीन फील्ड थे, तो हम तीन के तीन ही फील्ड सबमिट कर रहे थे, लेकिन अगर हम जितने रिक्वायर्ड है उसमें से कम करें तो क्या वो सेव
ठीक है।
होएगा? मतलब ये पूछ रहा हूँ सर।
बिल्कुल, हाँ ठीक है। सो वो नल की तरह सेव होगा, लाइक दिस ऑल थिंग्स when you will work with the backend, like when you actually create a backend, so you have to handle, like तुम्हें logics बनाने पड़ेंगे कि for example if you are let's say you wanted to post something on the Facebook, so तुम्हारा request authenticated है कि नहीं, so when you are handling creating that endpoint for accepting that data or post request, so वहाँ पे वो चेक करेगा कि whether this request is authenticated or not, and then based on that you can check that कि जो data तुम ले रहे हो या फिर the data the Facebook is taking, whether it's contain all the mandatory data or not. अगर for example आधार नंबर, जैसे तुमने कहा कि अगर आधार नंबर तुम नहीं सबमिट कर रहे हो and it's mandatory, in that case Facebook will just give an error, so कि आधार is mandatory and you are not you have not filled that information.
Yes sir,
So
got it.
these all things will be handled using the backend, like when you work in the backend.
सर यही पॉइंट था, जब बैकएंड पे तो सर तब जाएगा ना जब हम सेव करेंगे, सबमिट बटन क्लिक करेंगे, लेकिन सर वहां जाने से पहले ही आ जाता है कि भाई ये चीज आपकी रह गई, पहले फिल करो।
नहीं, so these all things are these all things are basically client side render, like client side कि when you work in the web development, what happens is that कि on every input field, like तुमने कुछ conditions डाल दिए कि अगर तुम एक फॉर्म सबमिट कर रहे हो जिसमें नेम है, ईमेल है एंड पासवर्ड है, so so even if you are submitting the name after 5 or 6, maybe after 6 character, there is a logic on that form that after 6 character it will be submitted, मतलब फॉर्म का रिक्वेस्ट चला जाएगा, मतलब मे बी तुमने कभी नोटिस किया होगा कि if you are on maybe you are wanted to buy an health insurance and you go to their page and तुमने नंबर डालने के बाद और कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन फिल नहीं किया और तुम एग्जिट कर गए, you have not submitted that page but तुमने नंबर डाल दिया है, but they will call you back because they have that information and they have saved that information and they will call you back so that they can initiate or maybe they can try to help you if you are not able to fill that form. So these all logics are handled using front end and back end when you work in the web development field.
Okay sir, got it. Thank you sir. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So guys, we will build basically we have covered all the things like how to call API, how you can explore API, and how you can get data from an API. So for the tech folks who are here, like obviously you want to build something from the sessions and any type of project, right? So we'll be basically building a very small module, a very small module of Bitcoin price. Like we have a API of a coindesk public API which basically gives the Bitcoin price every 1 minute. So we will use their API and build a simple price tracker application on seeing on the front end. And not just on the our console.log thing. So let's see this. So you are able to see my screen, right? Okay.
Yes, Deepak.
So what we will do here is that instead of just initially what we were doing is that we're showing the data in this here in the backend. But what we want is that we will display the whatever the data we will get from this API, we will display it here, correct? So there are some like if you have worked in the JavaScript, there are some DOM properties. Using that, you can whatever the data you will get here, you can so on your front end. So we will do that right now. So let me make a field. Paragraph is equals to. So P is basically paragraph tick. Whatever the data you see in the paragraph. Let me give an ID is equals to NA and the initial data is NA. So what I will do is that in the index.js file, I will access this price value like price text. And when I will get the data from the server, like this is my API response, right? We had already made this thing. So this is my API from the for the Bitcoin. If I just hit using the browser, what it will do is that it will return me some data. It will return some data like time, BPI, USD, and this is what we need. Like the Bitcoin rate is currently 39675. So we need to access this BPI node, then USD node, and then this rate to show the data like this current rate on our front end. So what we can do is that first we need to call the API. So using the XML HTTP request, we will do that. So we can call the the API using the XML HTTP request, and then we will open the request like in what we used to do in the last application. After that, what we will do is that we will just load this application like whatever the data we are getting. So we have made the get request in this API. We have opened the open method. Now we on the load method, we need to just get the response, whatever the response we will get in the string format. After that, after getting in the response string format, what we can do is we can just parse the response. Like even if you check that what type of response it is returning, so you can go ahead and see what type of return it is, what type of response it is returning, or what type of data type it is. So what I have to do is that I can see that this is the data type, like this is the data I'm getting from the server. This is an unparsed data. So in order to use that data or work with this data using maybe JSON format, I have to parse this data, right? So parse the data, const use console.log again to see what is my past data. Now I can see that this is my past data. Now I want to access just this USD and this rate. Maybe this rate float, because this looks like this is the rate I want to access. So can anyone send in the chat that how can we access this node? Like we have already seen how to access the node properties 3-4 times. So can you share in the chat that how can we do that? How can we access this node of rate float? So this is the object. First is BPI, then USD, and then rate float. Can you share in the chat box? Guys, quick. I think we have seen it multiple times. I guess if you have not understood it again, I can explain, I think. Anyone? Pass data dot Abhimanyu has said USD dot rate. No, I think Abhimanyu, you have missed the BPI part. The first you need to access this BPI node, and after that you need to access the USD node, and after that you need to access the rate float. So pass.bpi.usd, yes, correct. bpi.usd.rate float, correct. So yeah, so first you need to access this BPI node. Again, I will do the same thing, like pass.bpi. You don't need to do, like, if you are not understanding, just you can go one by one node below and try checking that data. So I am on the BPI node. On the BPI node, I can see I want to access this USD node. So again, I will do using the dot notation. I will do the USD, and then I will see what data I'm getting. So I am inside USD. Now I want to access the rate float. I can just use one more dot notation and see this value inside the rate float. So now I have the data from the rate float of the current Bitcoin, right? So what I can do is that I can just display this data on the front end. Currently it's showing in the console.log thing, right? So we need to replace this NA part, anything.
One question here.
Okay.
In your editor, while you are typing, I can see automatically the field names are coming and you are just selecting. So these are public APIs. How your editor is able to know the field names beforehand?
Which field names?
Like if you go back to your editor.
Okay.
There, when you just tried USD, it is coming in the drop down, right? So these are coming in the drop downs.
No,
So
it's USD is not coming in the dropdown, I guess. Where is USD is coming? Not coming now. I'm just pasting it. I'm just pasting it USD by copying it from here. I'm pasting it, so it will not come.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were okay.
Okay. So now we have got the values of the current price of the Bitcoin. What we need to do is we need to set it to the NA value. So for that we have to access like the DOM node of this NA thing and then set the current value to this. So how can we do that? The ID of this thing is price. So what I will do is that I will get the reference, like the price reference as a price text, and simply I will use
render
price. Yeah, Lakshay.
Sir, can we render it from this ID?
Render is from this ID means
like document dot render comma that ID of that we were using comma this price.
Document dot render. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Why do you want that property? I don't understand what you're trying to say.
Sir, I think I have read somewhere like when we want to change the particular element and we have access, we know the ID, so we can use the render function and we can pass the function that we want, the ID that we want to change with the element
function that we want to change with.
So render is basically used in render function is basically used in the React part, if you know
Okay, sir.
correctly.
Got it, sir.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, cool.
Well,
So basically, I have got the reference to the price text. I'm setting the value of the inner text as the value. So if I do this thing, then I'm able to like set the current value to this. Like let's say that you wanted the whole all these things not on, like when I'm refreshing this page, I'm able to get the data. So let's say that I want a button. Basically, I want a button on the click of that button. I want to fetch the price. So you can do something like fetch and get current. So guys, after this session, basically, like I saw a few folks are leaving. So we will cover like maybe these are the projects for the guys who are not in the tech might not understand, but we will cover like what are error codes and how can basically work with Swagger. Like we have already talked about Swagger, but we'll also see that what are the how can you secure the APIs and what are the ways of securing the API. So yeah, just wanted to tell you. So we have got a button here on the screen. Get current price. What I want is that on click of this button, I want to set it to the current price, correct? So what I can do is that I can just get the reference of this button like this. And on the click of this button, I can run the whole run this whole thing instead of directly running it. I can run this whole thing on the click of the button. So basically, this is my button. So there is something called as add event listener, in the JavaScript, and it's a basically inbuilt function in the JavaScript which listens for any event. So in JavaScript, events are basically any type of events, like maybe a mouse event or mouse click, right click, hover, or key button press. Anything is considered it as an event. So I am using a click event that on this button, when I will click this, when I will use a single click, I want to execute something, right? So what I want to execute is that I want to fetch the current price. So instead of running this code directly, what I can do now is that move that inside the inside this thing, inside this function. And if you keep it above, it will work. So now what we will do is that instead of directly reloading the page and basically reloading your Bitcoin data on the reload of the page, you can just do it on the click of the click of this button. How you can understand that and how you can see that, you can just use a console.log every time if you want to see what is happening and where is my function, where is my what I am doing with my function. So you can just use calling coindesk API. Coindesk API. So on the click of this button, I am seeing a something console.log calling Coindesk API, and I'm getting the current Bitcoin price. So basically, the current Bitcoin price is updated in 1 minute. So I will not see real-time results, but after 1 minute, this data will be updated and I will be able to see. But the request is getting made from here. So this is how you can integrate APIs on your front end, and instead of like showing the data on the this log or this thing, you can show on the front end as well, correct?
sir, please show that 1 minute update line, please.
No, so 1 minute update line is done from this thing. Like when you design this API, whoever have created this API, basically this API is created by Coindesk company. So they have set a timer of that instead of doing like real-time reflection of the Bitcoin result. They will update the price in 1 minute.
Okay, sir, got it.
Yeah, so it is not in our control. So they will
Can we
update
do
the price.
by our end?
No, you cannot change this. Like you have to create the coindesk like Bitcoin API. Like you have to create your own Bitcoin API in that case.
No, no, sir. I'm asking like after every minute, I need to come and press this button, right?
No, you can automate it, right? So maybe you can make it real time, or maybe you can what you can do is that set a timer of 1 minute to automatically press this button. So
Yes, sir.
all these
I
things.
was asking this thing like how we will do this. Just brief me verbally. I will search it. Just I
So you
don't know
can
about.
you can okay. So what you can do is that you can set an interval of what you can do is that so you can set an interval of 1 minute, um, and in on every 1 minute your function will be getting clicked. So there is a function called as set interval in the JavaScript. You can use that thing to make it work, like refresh your page on every 1 minute. So sort of, let's say that key.
Sir, it's really interesting. Like everything that we think of is already present as a function in JavaScript.
Yes, correct. Set interval. There is also a function called as set timeout. So all these things you can use and utilize to. Okay, so what you can do is that you can move this whole function instead of button click on this. So now your API, and here is you can give a timer. So let's say I was giving like 100 ms is 1 minute, 1 second, 1000 ms is 1 second, and let's do a console.log and reload this page now. Call in coindesk API every 1 second. It's calling this API. So how can I see that? So that's why I have used console.log. If you want to make it more quickly, like every maybe 100 millisecond, now you can see that the Bitcoin API is getting called every 100 millisecond. Got it?
Yes, I got it.
So if anyone wants this code, like I will share it on the GitHub, and you can check these things.
Sir, may I
So
share one instance, please?
what?
Like one example.
Sure. Which example?
I don't know how one of my friend has made some script like this. So
Okay.
whenever his name is called in the class, he just run that script. So he is able to get notified. Yes, present, ma'am.
Oh, okay, that's interesting, man. Just, did you understand? Like, did you try talking him that which kind of service or what he is using?
That's why
Sir, he,
Lakshmi is
sir,
also
he has
wanted to know
Python
how
code.
to go
So
for it.
whenever ma'am announces his name, hey Ashish, are you in the class? So that script would type something in message. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm there. Mic not working.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Really interesting. So
That's
there
why
are a few
Akshay is
questions.
also eager to know how to get this.
What?
That's why Akshay also wanted to know how to get all these things.
Acha, okay. Really interesting to know
It's
this
really
one.
interesting, and you are really making it more interesting.
So
Thanks a lot.
is it the case that Lakshya is not attending this class and he's running a script who is saying all this on behalf of him?
But I'm speaking. That would be really, really, complex to speak like a human, right?
Acha. Right.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Krishna.
Is it AI bot or some script?
So no, it can be basically a just script. Like what it can do is that listen to the voice in the real time and then run the script whenever your name is getting called. So you can keep intercepting for your name to getting called, and then when your name is getting called, you can just unmute your mic. So I
It's
think
just like a Siri or Amazon.
no, it's not like that. It's just that he's running a script to unmute
Yeah.
his mic when a name is getting called. So I don't think that you need an AI bot for this.
Okay, so that script will automatically unmute the button, sir.
Correct. So
Acha, acha. It will type the message also. It will
hi.
send the message also.
Yes, it's like, see, if you are able to unmute it, then you can do the type the message also. Have you seen any WhatsApp or mod automation kind of things?
Yes, sir, I have seen it. Like
Yes. So
there was a guy, I texted him, "Hi, sir," and within just a fraction of second, the bot replied, "Sorry, I'm not available. I will reply." And after 2 minutes, he replied, "Hi, Laksh, how are you?"
okay, so these things can be also like WhatsApp has a feature of I think business account. So in the business account they offer this thing. So maybe that could be a business account, or maybe he's using a bot.
Sir, the script is actually shell script or normal JavaScript like thing.
Uh, l- l- let's take an example. Like you can also do using JavaScript. So what you have to do is that if you're running anything in your browser, right? If you're running anything in the tab, so you don't need to access this application. What you need to do is that you need to control your mouse and the keyboard things. Like let's say that. Let's say that we are talking on this thing, like we are talking on this meeting, and I'm intercepting something. So if I listen to some voice, and on that voice what I can do is that run a script to hover my mouse to the chat box and write something. So this is how it can be done, I guess.
Oh, okay, nice.
Okay. Yeah, so I think let's move to the next module, guys. So the next module is about building an API, and for that we will be using a Node.js and the Express.js part. So anyone have worked on the Node.js and Express.js before? Making a quick poll on the chat.
Sir, generally this automation things will be done by shell scripting, no, sir? I don't know.
Yes, it can be done, but it can be also done with the JavaScript.
Acha, first time. Nice.
Yes. You're not familiar with the Node.js. Fine. So guys, what we used to do in this, that in the Node.js and in the every API, what we were checking all the data within the JSON format. So what we will do is that we will just send this, like we are copying this data, and what we will do is that instead of going to their some other APIs, we will return this API from our own API, which we are just going to build currently. So for that we will be using a Express.js module. So Express.js is a minimal, basically, and flexible Node.js web application and framework that provide basically robust set of feature for web and mobile application hosting. So we will see how we can build an API using Node.js. So are you able to see my screen like code editor, right? Can you type yes?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
So
sir.
cool. So what we are going to do is that so let me first tell you a little bit about the Node.js and the how we can build an API. So first, what we do is that we use something called as Node Package Manager for working with Node.js. So npm is basically a called as Node Package Manager, which by which you can access any sort of code, or any code that is published by some other developers or open source packages, and which we can use in our code. So Express.js is a one kind of package, and this package is basically used for building it's a basically a minimalist web framework for Node.js. So today we will be using this framework or for building a Node.js application, and we will see that how we can create an API using this. So first what we will do is that we will use the Express.js, like what initially I have already installed the Node.js on my system. So let me show you how we can do that. But so for installing any node module, what we have to do is that we have to just use npm install and this package name, and this command will install the express.js on our system, basically on our system, yeah, locally. So all these things, all this code will be accessible in the node modules. Like basically node modules contain all the packages code which we can use in our applications. So these codes are not written by us, but these code are available, made available by other developers, and using this npm we are able to use that. So similarly we are using this express thing. So to access this express thing, what I have to do is that require this package, and we can do just by this express and npm const express require express.js, uh, require express. Second is that in order to create our app, like there are some, basically this is an object we are creating from this. So we will use this, we will create an app on this module, this express, and initiate app for running all the servers, like any backend, for running any backend things. We need some port to host our applications, and currently we will be using on the local host, right? So this local host will be able to see our code. So what I can do is that I will give a port 4004 and run my application. So these are all the standard codes. And you can see all these things in this, like next hello world. So you can see that these are the basically the uh, demo code, hello world application code they have given. So I'm just using that code only. Port name, start the app. So for starting this application, what we need to do is that we need node index.js. So basically node is the node we are with which we are using because index.js is where we are starting our application. So simply we can use node index.js to start our application. If we do node index.js, it will show something that example app is listening at localhost, some port is equals to 404. If we go to this port, localhost 4004, so we are seeing that cannot get dash because we have not defined any route yet, right? So what we have to do is that we have to define a maybe get route. Like we used to see this in the here now, that we have some get request, some post request with some endpoints, right? So here we need to define some endpoints. Let's say that I'm defining endpoint app.get. The way to define the endpoint is like this. Let's say this is a my endpoint, and on that I need to take the request and I need to take the response. So after that I have saved this thing. I have to restart the application. Why we have to restart it? Because the changes will not be reflected in the real time. For changing, it can be reflected, but we need to use some other services and some other modules, so which we will not be talking in this session. So if we do this thing like localhost is equals to slash, it's still not showing anything. So what I have to do is that I have to go to my endpoint. The my endpoint is a slash my endpoint, and you can just type this thing here. and you can see that we are getting some data and message is equals to hello, right? So that was our response. What I will do is that I will just copy this response and paste it in this. Just paste it here. Restart this application. So this way you can see that on my endpoint, I am able to get the data, and all these data have been is visible to me, right? And it isn't the why I am doing this response.json, because I want to return basically response.json thing. Like if I do response.send, like I will not define the what type of data type I'm sending, and I will just return it. In that case, you can see what type of data I'm getting. Like I have already it's sent, but I have already given a JSON format, so that's why it's coming in the JSON. But if I do something like, let's make another route, app.get on this slash endpoint. So if I go to this route, okay, I have not restarted the server. If I go to this route and see, I can see that I'm getting hello, but this is not in the this is not in any JSON format, right? So let's try to access this route from our Postman thing. Postman. So if I do localhost and slash get route, I will get an hello. The response is in HTML format, but if I do this for the localhost slash my endpoint, we are getting some data like which we defined, right? So now let's see that we have defined the get request, but what if I do the post request on this slash, right? What will I get? Can anyone tell me? What will I guess if I do a post request on this route? So I am not getting anything because this is not this route is not found. And if I have to use this like slash post on this route, I need to define it explicitly here like this, that app.post and then my endpoint. So everything you are doing has to be defined. It's not like that the get request and post request are automatically made. If all these things are there, then all these endpoints and the HTTP methods will be given in the API documentation. So you don't have to worry about these things. But if you are building an API, now you can see on the post request we are getting an hello. So if you are building an API, you need to handle the get request and post request on the APIs by yourself. So that's a basic demo REST API example. I guess there is one module left, and that is actually how to handle error codes and what are the API security. So which we'll talk about it in the little bit. But before that, I want to ask that if you have any doubts or any questions regarding what we have covered so far, so you can.
I have a question. In the previous
Sure.
example, you have done a hello with
Cool.
both get and post. So,
Correct.
how this get and post is then different? Because in both the cases, we can see in the browser the hello got kind of printed.
Correct. Correct.
So, how the internally how that get and post is differing?
So this get and post are basically when we build API now, we have to follow some. You have to follow some standard, right? So that you will only use get when you want to get some data, like you want to fetch some data. So let's take an example that there is a to-do list and you want to add the data to the to-do list. So in that case, you will be using the post request, but for example slash to-do list is the endpoint. On slash to-do slash post, on that you have to use the post request. But if you are using get request, so that will fetch all the data. So basically this is just a standard, but you have to define, and while building an API, you have to take care of that. Correct. So I just here mentioned that response and hello, but I could mention anything, because these both requests are different thing. Like if I post something, response dot send hello hello one, or hello one, it will show that response, not the same response. Correct? Any doubts?
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, before using that Express.js, actually we didn't do anything, no, sir. You just explained Express.js some.
Correct. Correct. So actually, like basically, this is just a starter, right? So in 3-hour course, you cannot explain everything. So I want to explain you that if you want to start building an API, where you can get started and how easy it is to get started building an API. So I think the Express.js is the best thing from where you can get started, and how you can see API is getting built. So yes, it's not everything about APIs, but this is the way you can get started, I guess.
I thought you'll integrate that Bitcoin with the Express and do that.
What?
I thought you'll integrate this Bitcoin we designed before, no, sir, that Bitcoin price. So,
okay, so
Bitcoin price using Express.
No, so Bitcoin price we cannot, like we don't have the Bitcoin price data now. We were using from some different APIs, like so we cannot do that, I guess.
Achha. So it is only used for building APIs.
Which one?
Express one.
Yes, Express one is used for building APIs, and
okay.
And you can build front end tools, like you can serve the front end also, but it's mainly used for building APIs.
Okay, nice, thanks.
Correct. Any doubt, guys? So far we have covered in the module. Hello. What is the route? Is it the URL? Yes, correct. It's the URL. So unless a get/post route are undefined, defined properly, you could be getting the non-value, right? Yes, correct. You would not get any value if the get and post request would not be defined on that route. So I think there is no more doubt. So we will see that what are the response, like HTTP status code. So it's basically throughout this course we have been working only with the request that have been done correctly, and we have received data without any problem. But what if is there any problem? And so we will basically dig deeper to understand that what are the different errors and what type of errors are. So the group of status codes, like on the different errors, the server return different kind of error codes, and you might have seen that 404 error page that not found. So all these things are all the error codes are defined in mostly 4 group of status code, and within each groups there are specific number that tell us more detail about the responses. But really knowing that just 4 general group is basically enough for that. So first is the status code in 200. So basically the status code in the 200 tell us everything about that the response is okay. Like if we found any success response, so everything will come in the success, like 200 status code group, and it tells us that the request was received and the response sent without any problem. Correct. While in the 300 response status code group, it tells us that we have been redirected to an appropriate resources. Let's take an example that if you're getting a response status of 302, so it means that if there is any redirection, redirection means the route of ABCD, like route of data A is getting fetched from data B or route B. In that case, you will get the redirection. Any doubt, guys? I'm not able to understand it. Can you just type in the chat box? It's like everyone
Yes,
is.
sir.
Can
Yes, sir.
you please show that where we get this status code so that we all can be aware?
Okay, fine. So let's take an example of the. Okay. Mm, let me share my Postman. So I think you're able to see the Postman screen. So here we are posting something like here we are posting about some pet data, and when we are posting, we are getting a status code of 200. Here it's saying as a 200. So this status code is basically everything is okay and the response is successful. But what if we will do on some other things, like if it does not exist? It is saying that 405 status code not allowed. And if you see on this, basically it's a client this method is in the client error. So you have to, like, even if you are from a tech or the product team, so I think it's better to understand about all these like most of these error codes, that what these are. So it will make our life easier, I guess. And you can really easily debug those problems. So let's say that if I'm, instead of pet, I am writing pet12, correct? So it is saying that 404 not found. So I'm not sure I'll be able to show the redirection thing, because that need to be defined from the server, right? So we have seen the 200 status code and the 405 status code that is not allowed. Let's say if I am doing, I'm not getting any response because this is not a valid URL. So yeah, 405, and then we have 200 status code. If I do something that does not exist on this store, so it is returning as the 404 status code, status not found. So that's basically this status code defined that is there your response is okay or not. Cool. How can you check the status code on the Chrome? You cannot check the status code on the Chrome, I guess. Let me, I am not sure about this. So yeah, you can check that. So you can go to the network tab, and when you requested this pet thing, this API, you can go to the network tab and see the first this request is getting made, and on that request you can see that the request method is get, and the because the browser can only make the get request. On the status code here you can see that the it's a 404. So if I make a correct request, let's say that this can be a correct request. Okay. So this is 405 because get request is not defined. So yeah, you can check in the network tab. So I guess that's more of about the status codes and why status code are important. The listings of the status codes, like it are divided. These are divided into 4 groups. First are the success, redirection, client side errors, and the 500 errors. So 500 errors are mostly the server side error that happens. For example, if there is some query that failing on the server, and if there is some problem with your server, so in that case the server will return an 500 status code instead of 200, 300, or 400. So if you have any doubts about the status code, you can ask, else we will move to the next module, that is why API security and what are the API securities technique.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
That redirection 302 status code is there, no, sir?
Correct. Yeah.
So redirect is nothing but like one URL. If you want, if we click, it will go to another URL.
Right. Right.
So that final status code, if you check, it will be 302 on the other URL thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Yes. Any other doubt? So can we move to this module 8? Can you type in the chat box, guys?
Yes, people.
Sure. So till now we have seen that how we actually, give me a minute. So how we actually create APIs and how do we actually use APIs. When we are working with the Twitter APIs, like when we try to see the response data from the Twitter API, we saw that it was not working. And why it is not working? Because there are some securities attached to it. You cannot access you cannot access someone's follower data on the Instagram using an API, because you need to be authenticated and you need to be an authenticated user. Like Instagram need to know that whether you are a correct user or not correct. So there are 3 techniques mainly for providing securities to the APIs. Like there are many methods, but few methods will not be talking because those are very complex. One is course, which was happening with the Twitter thing. So the first is the authentication keys. Why authentication keys are required and how can we use authentication keys? So authentication keys are basically your identification keys. Let's say that in the first module, we wanted to understand that how can we integrate Razorpay on our website and start accepting payment. So what we can do is that we can go to the Razorpay site and Razorpay will give us the authentication key. And we can use this authentication key to integrate while calling the Razorpay API. And using that, Razorpay will know that the website A is calling me to transfer and communicate with me for the payment transaction. And that way they can know that it's a valid request or this transaction is approved or not, or whether they are able to like that organization or that website is whitelisted to know like use the Razorpay API or not. So basically, to summarize, authentication keys are a type of identification which can be used in APIs for securing APIs for invalid or unauthorized access. Second is the O authentications. So anyone can tell me about O authentication, and have you heard about O authentication thing?
Sir, is it about oaths? Like,
OAuth means what you're saying?
sir, actually, I made some small project in that. We made oath.js file so that it can verify that.
No.
Okay.
That's a different thing. Like it's for the file structure, but OAuth is basically that. OAuth is an authentication protocols that allow you to approve one application interacting with the another application on the behalf of on your behalf without giving away your password. So the correct example can be Google. So when you go to some other websites, like when you go to let's say that Facebook, and you can use Google to continue. There is a button called as continue using Google, right? You might have seen on multiple websites. So there is a button called as continue with Google. So what you are doing here is that you are using Google to get access to some other services. So this whole method is called as O authentication. And while integrating these APIs, like we are accessing some other third party services to authorize ourselves to a website. So that's OAuth is. Third thing is about the API limit. For example, for example, we were building the Bitcoin tracker application, and we set an interval that we want to update our Bitcoin price every second, like let's say every 100 ms, maybe in the less than 1 second. So in that case, the if something like if more request will happen on my server the charges on my server, or maybe my server can crash. So to remove all these things, there is an API limit. Like you can use API limit on the servers, that an user A can only do 100 requests in a day, or user B like can only do 10 requests in a day, so that you can prevent your APIs, like prevent your services from unauthorized attack or DDoS attack. So if you know about DDoS attack, this kind of API limit is one of the way we can prevent our services from those kind of attacks. So that's more of about the securing APIs. The auth key we saw, then there is an authentication, and there is API limit. So I think that's all about APIs, guys. If you have any questions, I would love to take. I think we have already covered the Swagger part. So if you have any question, then we can take now. Like you can ask any questions related to the API and whatever we have covered so far.
So Deepak, coming to the auth and API limit.
Okay.
So as per my understanding, what I believe,
Mhm.
API limit is, for example, we initiate some transition from Google Pay or Phone Pay or Paytm, or
Okay.
for example, any credit card Paytm, any credit card payment will make. So at that time, we will get a OTP from the authorization from the authorized bank that the valid limit for this OTP is 5 minutes. So if we
Okay.
will go or use the same OTP after 5 minutes, the server will decline it straight away.
Okay, so that's kind of a that is not how the API limit works. I will tell you the example of API limit. Basically, that procedure is for basically handling the payment and not for the API limit. So the example of API limit can be, let's say you want to access the Google data, like you want to access the Google location data on your site, maybe map, and you cannot call the Google Map API every time. Like there is a request that, like, there is a limit that you can call it only 1000 times in a day, and if you're crossing that limit, you have to charge, the Google will charge you for some amount. So in those things, Google limit you using API limits. And there are ways you can, when you work in the tech, or there are ways you can prevent API limits by storing the data in the server, in your own server, before actually getting the data from the server or calling their API.
Fine. Very nice. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
can you,
Krishna.
sir, can you say like the Swagger in simple terms, sir? Like I didn't understand Swagger.
Okay, so the Swagger is basically like it's similar to Postman, but what we like similar Postman is a complete environment for testing, documentation, even monitoring the APIs. While Swagger is used for designing, building, and documenting these APIs. Like when I was in the let me show you the example of that. Let me show you the Swagger thing again. It will take 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Sir, meanwhile, may I ask one thing?
Sure.
Sir, like whenever we, describe something on resume, we describe it like we have used tons of lot of things. Sir, after that, if we get some time, would you please describe what we have done today in a very, polished language?
Sure, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Polished language means I did not understand that.
मतलब
It's a summary
एक
you are asking, or
ये भी डाला है वो भी डाला है जैसे लोग रेज्यूमे में करते हैं.
no. So like, see, this is a way. This is a getting started course, and if you want to understand more, like this can, after taking this course, you can go to any direction. If you are a product manager, then you can understand or use Swagger, or if you are working in a tech, then maybe you can start building APIs and after getting started from this module. So I guess there are multiple ways you can get started, and the crisp can be you learned how to use APIs, how to integrate Postman, how to integrate APIs in the site using client. So yeah, but still we will send you the details of the what we covered, I guess. Swagger postpaid store. Okay, so as you can see here in this Swagger part, this is for basically designing the APIs, the documentation of the APIs. All these APIs are here. You can check out these APIs and find the description of all these APIs. You can even execute the APIs from here. So this is why the Swagger is there. While in the case of the Postman, it's a complete package. Like even you can document APIs, you can test your APIs. There are multiple functionalities in Postman. So that's the difference. That's the difference in Swagger and Postman. And
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood, sir. Thank you.
yeah. So guys, if you do not have any questions, then I think we can close. Uh, just give me 1 minute. I'm getting a call. Sorry guys. Okay. So if you have any question,
Hello, sir.
yes.
Like, what is why do you call it as RESTful API, sir? That RESTful means what, sir, exactly?
So basically RESTful are the standard, like it's a protocol of how like if you have seen about the REST and the hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
RESTful is just a protocol of how the APIs work. It's there is nothing. It's just a representational. REST is called as the meaning of the REST is representational state transfer. So uh, there is nothing much in this, I guess.
Okay, sir. I didn't think there was full form for that.
Yeah, no. So okay, guys. So I think if you do not have any questions, uh, I I think that would be great if you can uh, write a blog on APIs. Like I have tried to cover everything from integrating an API to basically going to documentation and seeing how you can pass data, how you can integrate to your site. Also, if you can share your feedbacks about your the course or how we can improve this course, so that would be really great. About the lectures and the slides and the notes, few people were asking, so we will share it you within the 4 to 5 days, because few things are not ready and the videos will take like 24 hour to process. So probably we will share you within 4 to 5 days. uh, I think that would work. So guys, if you have any question, you can still ask. Else, I think we can close this session.
Thank you so much, Deepak. Deepak, last question from my end.
Okay.
How to uh, get more into APIs? Any specific, you can say, the resources available on the net, or you will provide it to us later on the email?
Okay. So before I tell you that what more API, where exactly you want to go from APIs? Like you want to develop an API,
Yeah.
or whether you want to develop your own API? You're
Yeah,
saying.
developing an API and how API will work on the front end. For example, I have creating some projects, and after creating a project, I have to push the API, or you can say the my
Got it.
application over the server. So these are
Got
the
it.
things I want to
Okay.
clear. So
Okay.
how to
So
specialize on it?
Sure. So that's the work of a backend developer. And if you want to be a backend developer, like I will be sharing you all the resources if you want. Like you can
Yeah.
personally PM me, but DM me for more. Like I will be sharing resources on the APIs, what you can learn in specific direction. Like if you're a product manager and want to understand more things about the Swagger and the Postman, then I'll be sharing resources based on that. If you want to be a front end developer and you want to integrate sites like multiple APIs in that, then we can I can send you some resources based on that. Or if you want to become a backend developer, then I'll be also sharing, like, these are the three direction mainly from this course. So I'll be sharing all the resources. So that's why I think I have written here that it will be shared in the next 7 days. If Yeah.
Fine, fine. Thank you so much, Deepak. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhimanyu, for joining. Any more questions, guys?
Tech do you work?
What?
Sir, which tech stack do you use? Like,
So I work on mainly I work on Monstack, like Mongo, Node.js, and React.
oh,
I
really
all
amazing.
Yes. Okay. What about you?
Sir, I am learning Mern stack now, and I am trying to make a Flipkart clone. But uh, after making 20-30%, I realized I am just following the video instead
Mhm.
of getting into the crux. So today I realized how things work, how they're related to each other.
Okay. So, like, parallelly with this course, we are also like running a full stack boot camp where
Mhm.
we're helping around 7, 8, 8, 10 to folks for getting job in full stack development. So, if you're interested, you can DM me for more details about that. But yeah, that's the thing.
Sure, sir, sure. And
Sure.
so one last thing. So, what's your opinion on competitive programming?
I think that's a very different domain from this call. So maybe you can personally DM me for that.
Sure, sure. Pardon me,
It's
sir.
it's a very popular question, I guess. So, but still. ठीक है, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I would
Uh,
really,
so
yeah,
one more thing I would like to ask. Sir, you mentioned about that you would take a mock interview as well in this course. Or
I will help you not in this course, but if you are building any new application or building more projects, so you can DM me and I will help you get more, like, help you building that project. Yeah.
uh, I'm talking about the mock interview. Will you be taking a mock interview as well in this course?
No, where I mentioned about the mock interview, I'm not sure.
I think on LinkedIn. I will once check, but I think yeah.
Sure, sure. Then I think ठीक है, you can DM me for that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Cool. So thank you so much, guys, for joining, and I would really love if you can share what you learned on the social media, or maybe you can write or publish in form of blogs. That would be really validate that whatever I have covered, or it would validate that what you have learned, what all things we covered. So thank you so much for joining, guys. Bye bye, and have a great weekend.